Good evening, everyone. It is now 7:00 p.m. I will call this council meeting of the Township of Mapleton on Tuesday, January 10th, 2023 to order. And welcome everyone and Happy New Year. It's a new year for us and we'll start off this with standing a vote candidate if you can, please. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I do have regrets from Councillor Reed tonight. One of her children is ill and she's taking care of that child. We have confirmation of minutes. Moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that the minutes of the Township of Mapleton Council meeting held on December 13th, 2022 be confirmed and circulated in the agenda. Any questions or comments? All in favor? It's carried. We have no matters arising from the minutes. With council's indulgence, we're going to skip right down to item number 7, a delegation, matters arising in delegation. We do have Lawrence Cudlip online. Lawrence, welcome.
Thank you.
Who's that other fellow that's with you?
I don't know who he is.
Well, Happy New Year to you guys.
Happy New Year to you, Mr. Mayor, and the rest of council.
So you have the floor.
All right, so let me see if I can use the magic of 2 seconds here to get my PowerPoint up and running. Let me know when you can see that.
That's good, Lawrence, from my end.
Okay. So good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors, and all other attendees who I can't see. I'm going to basically reprise the presentation that I was present for back in July of this past year in 2022, whereupon I went through the grant application that we made at that time, prior to that, obviously, and so there's very little in terms of let's say new stuff at the moment, but it's a refresh just to bring everybody back up to speed as to where we're at with that previous application, and then maybe a quick chat about where we're going forward on that. So the key elements of the program objectives were to improve and increase areas within the PMD arena. To provide new community space, to improve what's there and expand upon it. We were looking eventually in any redesign to look at high efficiency HVAC systems, passive ventilation, perhaps look at a slightly more efficient use of space, create and enhance all of the AODA accessibility components to the facility. Create the multi-purpose meeting spaces that could be used for various community groups and expand its outreach. beyond the immediate locale of Drayton. Integrate solar power, which again would help to diminish and reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and improve on the efficiencies and cost of running the facility, which is another goal of the Green Inclusive Community Building funding. Look at updating the building security, and anything that we would propose as new work would consider what's called SEPTED design, which enhances anti vandal resistant and anti graffiti measures on a facility like this. Overview of the site plan and some imagery that we included in the previous submission are currently unchanged, and we may look at tweaking some of this to enhance the application as we go forward. But to refresh everybody's view of the project, 3 images there are numbered as to where they're taken from on the site plan, but essentially the scope of the project and the concept design involved removing the large meeting room, multi-purpose room on the south side of the building, and creating a brand new facility with an expanded multi-court facility with an upper level walking track, and then there were community rooms based toward the east end. There would be an integration with existing entry features, including the new drop-off, a new roofed glassy area here, which I don't know if you can see my cursor. I think you can, to demonstrate a sort of more open and inviting approach to the building, which I know is currently not necessarily the case. And then introducing things that have to do with sustainable design, high efficiency envelope, diffuse glazing to bring in natural daylight, other features that you can't see that are embedded in the design, which include things that have to do with the HVAC systems. The back of the building would be enhanced with another drop-off area. So in essence, you would have almost sort of 2 sort of approaches to the building. The back piece would serve more of the community-oriented facilities where you've got these other rooms and spaces I'll show you in a second, along with the accessible playground that we identified at the back here, which would dovetail nicely with the idea of perhaps providing some childcare space within and programming within the expanded building footprint. On the right-hand side, I'll just walk you briefly through the floor plan that we developed. And again, keep in mind, this is, as the slide says, concept design. So it's fairly high level at this point, but it does set the table for how a design would proceed based on hopefully the funding that we can garner from this program. So obviously we have a large new entrance foyer area facing the street, the multi-court area to the right, which is an expansion, by the way, of the existing hall space that's there now. So the existing hall would essentially be consumed by this and enlarged to accommodate this multi-court space with an elevated running track. We're looking, of course, at some barrier-free access, so there'd be a new elevator to get you to the upper level. We had some renovations to some of the change rooms and the referee's room. There'd be a refreshing of some of the other spaces that in and around the area, for instance, the washrooms, which we did do a refresh 2 years ago. So that program, we'd have to take a close look at how far we went with any replacement or refreshing of that, since it's new work now. But in any case, the kitchen space, for instance, here designated in this area here, would be completely redone to serve all of the functionality here. And then if I can move this out of the way, multi-purpose room at the back with a dividing wall, which would provide for a very large or slightly smaller double room allocation for whatever program can go in here. For instance, childcare, for instance, at ground floor with easy access to a playground at back. The second floor plan, the second floor plan identifies where the elevator running walking track would happen within the facility. And this is not groundbreaking design. This kind of feature has been incorporated in several community-based facilities and rec facilities around Ontario as I was part of one design program to do something like this a number of years ago on a different facility in the GTA. So I'm familiar with the ins and outs of the detailed design necessary for this. And then, of course, there are a bunch of other rooms set aside at the far end of the facility. I think I have my cardinal points wrong. That is actually the north end up at the top of the drawing here, as we're calling it. In any case, there'd be a small kitchenette, some washrooms, which are, OBC requirements, and then a connection by corridor to the elevator space here. And then, of course, exit stairs as required by code. We went through an exercise, of course, as part of the program, the previous program for funding, to do a cost estimation, which we showed here as an order of magnitude costing. So we were approximately, the whole program, including design and PM costs, was just under $10 million based on the areas provided. Some of that's renovation space. And there is no, other than some upgrades to the ice plant itself and some minor touches to arena accessibility, no major changes to the ice pad area. I'm going to just zip through a couple of these slides. There are, just to demonstrate, as we did in July, there's a number of programs out there at different levels of funding available for community and recreational type buildings. There, for instance, things like building monitoring here and recommissioning and retrofits. These are small potatoes. Let's say it's much smaller valuations, leading up to a couple of these GHG reduction studies, and I know our company was involved, as you know, with the GHG mission study that was recently undertaken. But this is the baby right here that we're approaching for the next intake, which was just announced in early December, with a deadline of February 28th. So before that deadline hits, we fully intend, with approval, to move forward with a second application, and we will be dealing directly with the town. And Manny in particular and his team, to talk about how we can enhance the next application to hopefully win the funding and move the project forward. And I think that is it for the presentation. So we're here, Tom and myself are here for questions.
Thanks, Lawrence. Really appreciate that. Do have a motion here, a resolution moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin, that the Township Mapleton Council receive for information the delegation of Lawrence Cudlip and Tom Montgomery, SEMA Plus, regarding the green and inclusive community buildings, 2021 Mapleton grant application with respect to the potential PMD arena expansion. So I'll open it up for any questions or thoughts from council, and hey, Mr. Barron, I'd like to open it up to you. Do you have anything to add to their presentation at this point?
No, thank you, Your Worship. Just if council is still interested in having SEMA move forward, because of the time, the tight timelines, it would be nice to maybe just get, we can add that to the resolution that we agree to move forward. There is some considerable amount of time and money from both sides that would have to be invested. We've invested quite a bit of money already, but there's some time that we have to do as well. So just if we can get a confirmation that we're able to move forward, please.
Thank you. And Lawrence, the numbers you provided were the numbers previously of $9.8 million. What is it in 2023 dollars?
We'd have to do a little bit of homework on that, Your Worship. Right now, the building industry has gone through some tumultuous times last year, and things have settled down. For instance, the cost of lumber has dropped. So we have seen some of the cost of key building materials has actually leveled off. Some of it has slightly increased. Generally, I would say there's been an increase between this year and last year, a forecasted increase of anywhere probably between 8 to 10% in dollar values for construction. But there's a lot of uncertainty coming up in 2023, as everyone probably knows. So we'd like to get you a more educated answer on that through Manny in the next couple of days.
Thank you. So we have opened it up to council then, comments and questions for council. And as the CEO has pointed out, there may be some direction from council, whether we would like SEMA Plus to continue to investigate this on our behalf. Councillor Ottens?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. What else needs to be done to the plan before it's ready for submitting for the next grant application?
I assume that that's directed toward me. Your
That
worship?
is,
One of the options we've talked about loosely right now is to enhance what we've done so far. So the design wouldn't change per se, but some of the presentation materials would be enhanced to include that. Things like quite honestly, some more convincing graphics to demonstrate what the building would actually look like. We also have support of the GHG emission study that we can talk to and maybe append to the application itself as well. So in terms of rework or new work, given the fact that the deadline for submission for the application is a little more than 5-6 weeks away, we would look to enhance what we've already done and not create any new work or new design work per se, but sort of embellish the application and revisit the writing that was done in the first instance and look at possible improvements that we can do to enhance the application to illustrate the broad reach and community influence that this edition has. It's not just about improvements to help the local community. It has a much broader reach.
and to illustrate that we are shovel ready is what the problem was last time, right?
Well, we think it was part of the problem. The issue, the debriefs don't deliver a ton of explicit information. We suspect that there are other communities that may have had projects more in the can, as they say. We certainly would make it clear, as we did in this application, that we would be continuing the design work and aim at a tender release, let's say, or construction release sometime in 2023. That would be key to what we're going to have to do here. In 5 weeks' time, there isn't enough, to be honest with you. It would be difficult to produce a detailed set of construction-ready documents in 5 weeks. However, we can enhance the submission to make it appear to be far more ready than maybe, let's say, it was in the previous iteration.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy New Year, Lawrence and Tom. Nice to see you guys. I got 3 questions, actually. The first part, Lawrence has already talked about, in that maybe not a lot of flexibility or new work between now and submission date. But this design was kind of created and, I guess, blessed by the old council. We have got 2 new councillors that may have not had a real multi-year idea of this concept. So how much flexibility? So once this proposal goes in or gets submitted, how much flexibility to say the floor plan would there be after, say there was an approval process and this proposal was approved? Is there an ability to, I don't know, move stuff around within the plan, or do the plans need to be implemented as proposed and approved?
That's a very good question, Lauren. So if they approve the plan, if they give us the money saying from our plan, what's the flexibility of maybe making some changes to the overall plan that we submitted?
I don't think that would be a problem. I think, don't forget, the funding is approving approving the project. It isn't specifically like looking at the program of spaces and rooms and looking at the detailed design that you present and saying that's exactly what you have to deliver. I think major deviations from that, if you were to suddenly double the size of the building or create all new programming that wasn't part of the original application, that could be a bit of an issue, but tweaking the design would not be a problem at all. And quite honestly, would be expected because we're, you know, at a stage of the design program that would encourage some manipulation of the design to make it better.
Thank you. Councillor Martin?
So the other two questions I had were around more specifics. We, as you noted, Lawrence, we didn't really address the ice rink at all outside of the ice plant that is actually in our capital budget down the road. But specific to the scoreboard and the sound system within the arena itself, they're old. I don't know if there could be some efficiencies found with like a new like LED style of scoreboard versus like the OG 1980s kind of bulb style scoreboard that we have. And I'm pretty sure I saw some RCA cables up in the sound room on the weekend for the tournaments. Like, I don't know if there'd be an ability to, you know, look at maybe a more user-friendly or modern type of sound and kind of a vent clock for the minor hockey Drayton Figure Skating Club that actually uses that quite a bit, like the sound system. If that could be incorporated or just looked at. And then secondly, the multi-court. Remind me, I don't know, anyone here, what was our vision for that multi-court as far as events go? We have a kitchen, $100,000 kitchen. And if we can't use that multi-court for events like weddings or events, we'd be essentially using the multi-purpose rooms, which are pretty small. And then is it really worth having a kitchen? I know, Marlene, we've had conversations with the kitchen specifically, right? So just remind me, what was the vision on the multi-court and the floor itself and what use could be besides sports?
So we'll let Lawrence, you answer the question, Lawrence, when it talks about the efficiency of the scoreboard and the sound system, is that incorporated into it? And if you can maybe follow up with your suggestions or thoughts on using the multi-court for other events, like if it's a hockey tournament, having all the kids in there and sitting and having lunch.
Absolutely, Your Worship. The flexibility with the funding, we allocated some ballpark number against the ice plant and arena accessibility to the tune of about $1.7 million in that original application. It certainly would be within the realm of the revised application to make sure there's some kind of contingency or allocation of money to improve the sound system as you suggest. So that would not be an issue. And as far as use and functionality of that large multi-court space, it is completely wide open for various opportunities. So it could function in the level of athletics with multi-court, which goes all the way from a full court basketball to pickleball or shuffleboard or whatever other sport engagements you want to create in there. And it could also function as a major assembly space. It has the capacity to do that with the washrooms right next to it, and not unlike what you're using it for now. Think of it more of an assembly room that can function as a sport facility as well.
Thank you. Councillor Tamlin, any questions? Let's go.
Yeah, hi there. So this project's fairly new to me, but I just wanted to ask you, as far as the grant applications, what are they really looking for within the grant application? I mean, it's for green infrastructure and accessibility. Is there something within the design that really kind of stands out as far as green and innovation, or that can be like showcase for other kind of multi-use recreational centers in other municipalities? I know you said there was a high efficiency HVAC system and solar panel. Is there anything in there that they're particularly looking for within kind of this green development?
I think they're looking for innovations and what's now becoming almost standard fare, quite honestly, in reducing energy consumption and greenhouse gas tonnage. So I noticed some of the projects that did win funding have statistics that back up what those goals will be. So those need to be clear in the application that and now that we have the GHG study in hand, that will help us maybe target a specific number in tonnage of GHG reduction. So I think more clarity in what the goals are and as far as the green side of the project would be part of the new application. I think an enhancement in the programming to take the building beyond, create a much a wider purpose for the facility that goes beyond sort of more of a local thing. The first application incidentally did speak to that, but I think we can enhance the wording for that because I know the projects, the ones that have won some federal funding, really did talk about their outreach. So very much community-based in a larger context. There was possibly Indigenous programming that went with some of these other facilities, which also helped. So that's what they're looking for, to answer the question, hopefully, is a very wide appeal to building this building, which will have multi-functions. So I think we're well on the way to demonstrating that. I think we just need to probably enhance what was previously submitted. And now that we do have a little more information, for instance, as I said, on the GHG side of things, we can probably target some numbers.
Thank you. Follow-up question? No? Any other questions from council members then? Lawrence, I'm just trying to remember, did this include electrifying the Zamboni as well? Was that part of the process? Do you remember?
Honestly, I don't believe that was part of it.
I don't think it was.
Okay. Food for thought.
Yeah.
All right. Council, the CEO has asked for some direction and the clerk has added to the resolution. And if with council's indulgence, I'll read the entire resolutions again. Moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin, that Township Mapleton Council received for information the delegation of Lawrence Cudlip, SEMA Plus regarding the green and inclusive community buildings 2021 Mapleton grant application with respect to a potential PMD arena expansion. And here's what's added. And further, that Township of Mapleton Council directs SEMA Plus to update, enhance, and resubmit Mapleton's application by the 2023 deadline to obtain green and inclusive community buildings. Does that sound fair to council? Any objections to adding that piece? Okay, so any further questions then to either Lawrence or Tom? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, fellas. We'll likely see you at the Roma Convention
I hope so.
in a couple
you.
weeks. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Now, council, will go back to the agenda again, and we'll go into item number 6 under the Planning Act. Item 6.1. I have moved by Councillor Martin Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that Township of Mapleton Council received for information the planning report submitted by planner Linda Redmond regarding the rezoning application ZBA 2021-08 of Glen Ellen subdivision Boomer Creek, which received draft approval from the County of Wellington on November 29th, 2022. And further, council consider for approval the attached draft rezoning bylaw. Linda, anything to add to this resolution? No? Okay. Perfect. Okay, so questions from council members then? To Planner Redmond? And I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6.2. Consent application. Bear with me, it's a long one. Moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that the Council of the Township of Mapleton support consent application B 149/22 as presented for the lands described as part lots 104, 113, and 105 Bolton Survey, RP 60R1888, Part 9, and municipality known as 44 Wellington Street South, with the following conditions: that the owner satisfy all the requirements of the local municipality, financial and otherwise, for the proper and orderly development of the subject lands, including but not limited to the outstanding taxes. That payment be made of a fee of $332 for a letter of clearance. That a copy of the deposit reference plan be submitted to the township. That driveway access to the severed lands can be provided to the satisfaction of the township of Mapleton. That zoning compliance for the retained lands is addressed to the satisfaction of the township of Mapleton. That servicing can be accommodated on the severed lands to the satisfaction of the township of Mapleton. That a parkland dedication fee be paid as approved for in the Planning Act, RSO 1990. That a copy of the deposit reference plan be submitted to the township. And further, that council authorizes the planning and development manager to file with the secretary treasurer of the Planning and Land Division Committee of the County of Wellington a letter of clearance of these conditions on completion of the same. Nothing to add, right? Perfect. Questions, comments on this to Planner Redmond? And I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Got off easy, Linda. We have no minutes from committees. Reports and updates from staff. 9.1. Nothing from the building department. Then we go to 9.2, which is the capital budget and the 2023 fees and charges. The recommendation I have here is moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin. The Township of Mapleton Council received Finance Report FIN 2023-01 regarding the proposed fees and charges bylaw for 2023 and the proposed capital budget for 2023. And further, that council approve in principle the 2023 capital projects to the purchase order stage of procurement. So, Mr. Finance Director, do we have anything to add to this report?
Through you, your worship, the only project, well, it's not in the current year anyways, but I haven't removed the project in the Moorfield area that you discussed at your workshop. I would have expected some direction from council to do that formally, to remove that project. Right now, it's totally dependent on a community service group funding it. And if we don't get the community service group funding it, the project would only be deferred further into the future. So, but it's not part of the current 2023 budget.
So, council, we are now able to discuss the proposed capital budget and the fees and charges bylaw. Fees and charges bylaw will be not approved today, but be approved at the next council meeting, if that's what council wishes. But there is a proposal to approve today the capital projects to the purchase order stage, which means going out to the RFP, so that we can get the best rates. And I think, Mr. Morgan, you have those substantially ready to go as soon as you get the go from council?
Yes, to you, Mayor Davidson, we are ready. I did have a conversation with one of our engineering firms. We're ready to tender one of our bridges, and they've been talking to local contractors and bridge companies. There's not a lot out there right now, so they said the timing is good right now to get those out there to get the best deals.
Thank you. And I know, council, that regarding the fees and charges, we wanted to have some discussions around that as well. One being the columbarium prices, and the other one, the transit trader section of Schedule E, which is page 155 of the 208 on there. We'll have a discussion about those items. So before we do that, is there anything else that council wants to discuss on either the capital side of things or on the fees and charges that I haven't pointed out? All right, so let's tackle the fees and charges. And let's look at the columbarium niche price comparison. I think, Mr. Morgan, you had some information, or Finance Director, you had some information regarding the cost of these.
Through you, your worship, it's the cost of the to build the columbarium was about $106,000. If you divide $106,000 by the 30 units, 60 units, sorry, 60 units, the unit price that we should be retrieving for each unit be $1,765. Then it becomes a math game with respect to the care and maintenance agreement, because that's is by legislation a percentage of the total fee, which is about 13%. So the in the original proposal, there was some concept was to try to get a minor amount added to the fee so that it would go directly to reserves and pay down the next columbarium that would be planned for, I think, mid-decade. If you choose not to do that, then the prices should be $2,030 less the care and maintenance agreement that is put in that's put in a trust fund in which we can access the interest on that trust fund, but it's really is not a very much interest we're receiving. And then we will recover the cost of $1,765 per unit when we sell them. So that's would be the minimum cost. If council chooses or wishes to do something else, then they'd have to direct staff.
Thank you. So we'll start with that. Mr. Morrison, thank you for that information. So does council have any thoughts on the columbarium prices of the niche? Councilor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, I thought from the beginning they were priced a little high. As you know, this is something that I've been pushing all along. I did notice going through the regular operating budget, just in our cemeteries, the revenue and the expenditures of our cemeteries don't match either. So we are subsidizing the cemetery running as well. If you look at the revenue for 2021, it was 22,000, and then the expenditures are 68. So the cemeteries could be viewed as a service that the municipality is providing, and that all the residents are subsidizing this. So I see the columbarium as an add-on to that service. So 1,700 cost per niche is still probably pricier than what we're competing with locally in some areas, but I'd be comfortable if that's where we settled as a group. But I kind of thought 1,500 might be a little more competitive, but on the other hand, we're not really, I don't know. Are you competing with people? They kind of choose the cemetery they want from the get-go. So it's a hard thing for me to argue for, but I'm content at that price, the $1,700.
So you're suggesting that the price be changed to $1,765, which
Yeah.
is the cost of that unit, as according to the
Correct.
finance director?
Correct.
So do you want to put that motion on the floor then? That be changed to $1,765 from the $2,300? Is that your intent?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, so I'll need a seconder. There's a motion on the floor to change that. Councillor Tamlin is the seconder of that. So let's have discussion around that cost price then. Any other discussion? Councillor Martin?
Just how we got to the 2030.
Okay, so the 2030 would be net of HST, so you'd have to add the HST on top of it. That was one thing that should be clear. So the cost, out-of-pocket costs, cost of we put in terms of laboring to make the site compatible, $106,000, give or take, okay? You divide that by the 60 units, that came out to a unit cost per unit, if we sold them all at the same price, as $1,765. Then we were doing some math saying, okay, the care and maintenance is a percentage of the total, right? So that's 13%. So then you would come up to a subtotal of $2,030. And then you would add on HST on top of it. And Councillor Martin, and then you would just, if you want to charge $1,765, I would assume we're adding HST on top of that as well. So the total price would also come out to 2,030. Just to be clear.
Hang on a minute, everyone's got the calculator out. Yep.
Essentially, what we're looking at is 1765 plus
Plus
perpetual
HST.
care plus
Yeah, what-
HST.
That's right. That's what was proposed. That's how you get to the 2,300, right? So Councilor Otten has proposed that it be 1765, which is the cost. And if HTST is on top of that, it'd come out to just under $2,000. No. 1765 is just the cost of the unit. Okay. Right. Yep. Okay. 1765. Inclusive of the care and maintenance, not including HST. So it'll be just under $2,000, basically $1,995. Is that the intent, Councilor Ottens? Or did you intend it to have HST included in that 1765? No, this is true. Yeah. So any more conversation on the proposed amendment? Councilor Martin?
Sorry, just thinking through in my head here. So that essentially removes the transfer to reserves. So when the time comes to build a second columbarium, we'd essentially be required to put up the capital costs and then pay ourselves back as the niches get sold, correct? That's essentially what we're doing, is just removing the savings plan portion of this.
Mr. Morrison, is that correct?
Your worship, that is correct.
I comment.
Go ahead.
It's already in our 2030 budget for another columbarium for marked in there. So, I mean, to collect it from the current people for the future one, when it's in the budget for 2030, it seems like we're double dipping then. So, that would be when we'd need the next one, I suppose.
Thank you. Any more conversation on this piece? Then I'll call the question with the amendment for this amendment to change the price on the columbarium from the $2,300 exclusive of HST to $1,765 plus HST. All those in favor of that? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll continue on with the fees and charges bylaw. Counselor Tamlin, I know you wanted to have a little discussion about the transient fees. Transient trader fees, which you'll find as Schedule E and under licensing and lottery, which was 150, page 155. Go ahead, Counselor Tamlin.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. So when looking at that, first of all, there was lots of different categories for the type of food that was going to be probably offered in the municipality. So just maybe to include it under just under the food vendor kind of category, and also for one-off events, the cost was kind of prohibitive for it. So there was a couple of food festivals this year, for instance, and so if there was someone that was in town a lot, then it'd be an annual fee. But then for a one-off where you're inviting food vendors from, say, Kitchener or something like that, then to include a single event fee within there as well, that made it accessible for the amount of money you would make from vending it in this municipality anyway.
Thank you, Councilor Tamlin. So I did have discussions with Director Morrison and Mr. Morgan on this, and we looked at the transient trader. So if council indulges, if we take the chip wagon mobile barbecue and refreshment vehicle, if we call them food services vehicles and charge them the fee of $250, which is in currently the fee already there. So and everything gets captured under that one item instead of having different ones. So food services vehicles will capture the three, and $250 would be the fee, is what's being proposed. And then as Councilor Tamlin pointed out, that there's no one-day fee. So if we have a food services vehicle one-day fee of $75, that would capture anybody coming up for one day, just doing the food truck festival that we have. So Councilor Tamlin, do you wish to propose that as a motion, sir?
Yes, I do.
So Councilor Tamlin is proposing that as a motion to change it to food services vehicle, one price of $250, removing the chip wagon mobile barbecue and refreshment vehicle, and adding in food services vehicle one-day fee of $75. Do we have a seconder for that, please? Councilor Ottens, thank you. So we'll open it up for discussion then. Councilor Tamlin has already put the discussion on. Did you have anything further to add, Councilor Tamlin, to that?
But only in encouraging kind of events and cultural opportunities for the community to get together as well, so that are kind of diverse and offer a good experience for local people.
Thank you. Any other further comments and questions? Councilor Martin?
So a question then a comment. So the question is, what's the difference between a transient trader and a food services vehicle?
Yeah, we're going to discuss the transient trader. I had that same question, and once we did a search, a transient trader is such as a door-to-door salesperson. And Mr. Morgan, was there any other? I can't remember the other ones that are on there. Was it door-to-door sales? You can remember anything else?
Sorry, I can't, but there was about 6 or 7, maybe 8 different categories in different bylaws of other municipalities. And the only one I could think of at the time and remember was a door-to-door salesman, like somebody selling water filters or water systems. So sorry, that's the only ones I can remember.
Yeah, that's the only one I can remember too. So that transient trader did not include these food vendors. Any other comments or questions on the proposal from Councilor Tamlin?
There you go. As far as a transient trader, was there some legislation that restricted people coming into a community and doing that anyway? So would that just be removed from that category altogether?
And we'll discuss that point after we discuss your
Okay.
motion and the second, and then we'll get to that next piece.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Martin.
So I just want to go back to the actual reason for having this in the first place. And I like Martin's rationale for promoting the different festivals, but the reason that we have these fees here is to essentially protect the bricks and mortar businesses that we have, right? So, I mean, we don't do a very good job of keeping our restaurant in town, obviously, but the goal is that, and that's not our fault, that just happened. But the goal is that if other people are going to be coming in from out of town and providing one day or multi-day services, that folks who are paying actual business taxes to live and work here, while it's good to promote it, those people just need to pay their fair share, essentially, right, is what we're trying to do with this. So I think these folks pay fees in Waterloo and in Kitchener and in Guelph when they come up here with the barbecue truck, like it's their cost of doing business. I want them to stay, I think is what I'm saying. But if we can mold them and make it easier where there's like 1 or 2 or 3 categories, I think it makes good sense.
Do you have a suggestion for a third category? So right now we have like the yearly fee and then a one-day fee that's proposed. Did you have nothing else to add? Okay. Any other comments and questions then on the amendment to the fees and charges of this piece here, of the transient trader piece that we just discussed? A motion by Councillor Tamlin. Any other discussion? Okay.
That's a very, through your worship to Council Martin, that's a good point. And another way that we protect the bricks and mortar businesses is that these traders and food vendors have to be a certain distance from a business that is serving food as well. So let's just use Alamode, for instance, geographically where they are. Anybody selling food or as a food vendor cannot be, and I can't remember the distance, I think it's 150 meters from those businesses.
So I'll call the question then if there's nothing else. All those in favor of the amendment proposed by Councillor Tamlin to change the chip wagon, mobile and refreshment vehicles to food services vehicles of a yearly fee of $250 and a one-day fee of $75. All those in favor of that? As carried. So that cleans up that piece. And Councillor Tamlin brought up the transient trader. This as the door-to-door sales, we have that as there's the other categories, as Mr. Morgan pointed out. It's do we keep it in there? Do we remove it? And being that there's other categories besides door-to-door and we don't know those other categories in, I'm going to suggest we leave it in there. What I might suggest to council is that we remove the one-day transient trader fee and then just have the single transient trader fee that's in there. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Councillor Ottens.
How do you collect that fee? Is this just people coming in door to door and selling stuff? Like, how do you police that? How do you actually ever get that fee?
Mr. Morrison?
Well, presumably somebody would be honest enough to come and get the fee before they go door to door. Otherwise, you would require a bylaw enforcement officer to go out and enforce the bylaw.
I also know that Councillor Ottens, when I policed certain areas many years ago, that transient vendors, that was something we also policed. And if somebody made a complaint, they would come to the police. They would make a complaint to the police and we'd go investigate. And if they didn't have the right permits, they got charged under the applicable bylaws by the police in that case. So I'd move that we change transient trader to remove the one-day transient trader and just keep transient trader $400. I'll need a seconder for that, please. Councillor Tamlin, thank you. Any other comments or questions on that? Then I'll call the questions. All those in favor of that change? That's carried. So is there any other changes to the fees and charges that council would like to bring up at this point? We will have an opportunity to make further changes at the next council meeting if council chooses. Anything else today for that? All right, then we'll move along to the capital budget for 2023. The proposal that, of course, we have, the resolution we currently have is that the capital projects in principle for 2023 are allowed to go to the purchase order stage of procurement. Any comments or questions from council on our capital budget as it stands? And any issues with allowing the 2023 capital projects to go to the purchase order stage of procurement? Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To your question, no, I don't have an issue with the project moving forward. I got a more of a personal interest question for the Director of Public Works as a matter of, I don't know, it's more process. So we're replacing the CRV this year. It just says replace CRV on the cap. It's pretty specific. Should something like that be like replace vehicle 1, 2, 3, 4? So it gives you like flexibility if you choose to buy a RAV4 or a sedan instead of a CRV, like it's in the capital budget as locked into one particular model. Is that something we should maybe open up, or would you exercise that flexibility anyway in the process?
Through your Mayor Davison, you're correct. It shouldn't have been identified as an actual Honda CRV. It should have just been put in there as a multi-purpose vehicle, an SUV, more like that. So I would definitely, when we go to tender, whether we use our system, I'm trying to think what the name of it was, but we have a procurement one that we do use. Or if we go to tender, we'll tender for similar vehicles to the one we're replacing. So it could be a Toyota, it could be a GM or Ford, it could be anything, but similar in size. So yeah, it shouldn't have been identified, sorry, as a CRV. It's being too specific.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Councilor Martin?
I honestly, I don't have a problem with how it's identified. Like it's clearly identifying the vehicle that's being replaced. I just didn't know if we're hamstringing the procurement process by specifically listing a vehicle. That's all.
Well, I do have a CRV and it's a very nice vehicle, so I think Mr. Martin doesn't want to drive my vehicle. That's what it is. Okay. Anything, any other comments from council at this point then? When it comes to this, all right. If there's no other comments or questions, the resolution, I'm going to read it again. It's been a while. Moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin, that the Township of Mapleton Council receive finance report FIN 2023-01 regarding the proposed fees and charges bylaw for 2023 and the proposed capital budget for 2023. And further that council approve in principle the 2023 capital projects to the purchase order stage of procurement. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you for your indulgence in that. We now have the next resolution, item 9.3.1, moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Martin, that Township of Mapleton Council receive Public Works Report PW 2023-01 dated January 10th, 2023 regarding the proposed school zone reductions within Mapleton urban areas, and further that council repeal bylaw 2021-058 and enact bylaw 2023-001 implementing all the various speed reductions in all urban areas and school zones within the Township of Mapleton. Mr. Morgan, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor, Mr. Mayor and Council. Yeah, this was it was requested through a notice of motion through Councillor Reed to look into reducing the speed in front of the Alma Public School. So staff went out and researched and found all the public schools within the urban areas. You in 2021 you did all the rural school areas. So we've identified all well, 4 schools within town, and Edward Street in Drayton has always had the 40-kilometer-an-hour signs up, but it just was never identified in a bylaw, so we added that in there. So there'd be four schools in total that we would be reducing the speed limits down to 40 kilometers an hour. And instead of coming back several times with requests for this, we just did them all, which I think was a good idea by staff.
And Edward Street doesn't actually have a school on it, but it's near a school adjacent to a school, correct? That's
Yeah.
why they're changing that?
Yep, to you, Mr. Mayor. It's been 40 zone for as long as the road superintendent, public works manager can remember. So they just got plopped up from some complaints from speeding, which you'll catch the odd one of those and have to update your bylaw once in a while. So we definitely wouldn't want to remove those, or we would be hearing from the public.
Yeah, not a problem. I think council made the change of the 240 zone in front of the school, I don't know, 2 years ago, I think it was 2-3 years ago. But I don't know if the signs were ever put up there at that point when after we made the change, but that change was done. So thank you for doing that. So open it up for council for any questions or comments. Mr. Morgan on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? That's carried. I noticed. We'll move on to item 10. You get the approval of bylaws here. Item 10.4. Moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Martin. That bylaws number 2023-01 down to 2023-004. Be hereby read a first and second and third time and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. Do we have any comments or questions on that from council, these 4 bylaws? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Correspondence for council's direction is there. Item 11.1, the Flying Dutchman. We want to have a little discussion on that. Mr. Chris Amy, a member for the Flying Dutchman and a Mapleton resident, sent an email to Councilor Reed. Unfortunately, Councilor Reed can't be here tonight, so I will take this. He was looking at leasing the land at Alma Community Center where they would be able to fly their model flying club model planes around the Alma Community Center area. And there is a recommendation here that's in council's package. The recommendation I'll read here to you that has been put on here by staff. The Township Mapleton Council received for information the proposal letter from resident Chris Amy as a member of the Flying Dutchman Model Flying Club regarding leasing the flat section of land at the Alma Community Center. And further, that council directs the clerk to communicate their appreciation to Mr. Amy for his efforts initiating the proposal and council's decision to either A, further advance, or B, respectfully decline the opportunity as presented. So the clerk needs some direction to get back to Mr. Amy. So we need to have a little discussion on whether or not council thinks it is appropriate to have a flying club using model planes to fly off of our township property in the park. So I open it up for discussion. Councilor Ottens.
Thank you. My brother-in-law is heavily involved in this sort of thing out in Alberta, and they do it all the time. They go around to different places, campgrounds and things, and they're very careful with their planes, obviously. So, I mean, I assume that if they're gonna do it in Alma, is the KW group willing to come out to Alma? Is this the plan? I'd be in favor of more discussion on this proposal, see what they want.
It's my understanding that they have been coming up to Alma and using the field behind Mr. Amy's property where the proposed new property or
Okay.
buildings are going to be. And if they start building new homes there, then they'll have to look for another place. So I understand that. I'm also aware of residents around the park that are complaining already about noise that we currently have and lights and when it comes to activities at the community center or in the park, we do get those complaints at the township level. So I just want to make sure council's aware of that, that the residents would be a little bit worried about the noise level coming from these planes. I don't know how big they are and I don't know how loud they are. And so I still put that out to council to discuss.
Maybe he'll have to bring one here and demonstrate it so that we can hear how loud it is.
I'm sure Mr. Amy would love doing that. Anybody else wish to discuss this piece? I also know that the Alma Community Recreation Group, the ACTRA group, are proposing to build a recreational outdoor skating rink at some point in time on that property. I don't know what their timeline is. Councillor Martin.
No, I'd like Councillor Ottens, I'd be happy to find out some more details if staff want to investigate it. I do think we need to be respectful and mindful of the work and efforts that Alma has put into that particular park in that area of town. I think if people want to complain about hearing kids playing next door, I think we can handle those complaints. But if we bring in kind of a private club to lease and operate, like if it takes away from the overall park, then I wouldn't support it. But I think I'd be interested in reviewing a little more detailed proposal.
Yeah, and that's it. Thank you, Councillor Martin. And then, of course, we don't want to take away from the current Frisbee golf that they're doing there as well, because they have that and they do have competitions there for the Frisbee golf. So they might have to work out something. If that was a proposal, they'd have to go in there. So looking at the direction here, it's council is looking at to further advance. Councillor Tamlin, I haven't heard from you at this point.
Yeah, I would be happy to continue the discussion and see the practicalities of it as well, or the conflicts that might take place. And if it did move forward, then there'd just be some provisions that it will be on a trial basis and see how that works with the community, how it works with noise levels, etc. But to have a group use that space, if it's not, it's fuller utilize that space, and I'm always interested in these kind of fun, diverse things that are happening in the community.
All right. So we'll call this then it looks to me that further advance is the direction that council is going to give. So that's a recommendation that we're going to go with when we do the when I take the vote. I will ask staff that, ask council, would you like Mr. Amy to come as a delegation and speak to us? Would that be something the council would like to hear from him and hear from the club? Okay, so we can put that out there, Mr. Clerk, that Mr. Amy come, or the club members come and discuss what their thoughts are. I would also like the staff to reach out to the Alma Community Recreation Club, because they do a lot of work in that park, to see what their thoughts are on that. So the recommendation will be to further advance this. And any other questions or comments? Then all those in favor of furthering advancing? Okay, then that's carried. Then we have correspondence for council's information there. Anybody wish to speak to any of those items on that? I know we do have a letter there from Mr. Nader, our MP for Perth Wellington. The letter there is after a conversation I had with Mr. Nader at when I was at the FCM. I had a meeting with Mr. Nader and we discussed a number of items, including what he was putting in his letter after the fact. So that's something that came out from a good discussion with him. Anybody else wish to bring up any item? All right. We'll move down to item number 13 then. We do have a notice motion submitted by Councillor Tamlin. The notice motion says, be resolved that the Township of Mapleton create a new committee of council to give advice through council on matters relating to environment stewardship with the township. And that will be brought to the next meeting of council. Thank you, Councilor Tamlin, for putting that notice in. We have no notices of provision. Is there any other business on item number 15? Any other business the council wishes to bring up? Okay, I don't see that. We don't have a closed session tonight, so we'll go right to the resolution on 17.1. Moved by Councilor Tamlin, second by Councilor Martin, that bylaw number 2023-005 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of the council of the corporation of the township of Mapleton be hereby read a first, second, and third time, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. All those in favor? That's carried. We are now adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. At 8:10 PM, we're adjourned.